Hi, I'm Ann. I also felt bad being up here so much today, but I also have found CrossWalk to be such a place of sanctuary and such a place of unlearning. When I was young, I loved going to church. We went to a charismatic Episcopal church, which is really unusual because it was speaking in tongues and movement of the Holy Spirit, but also Episcopal. So it was the prayers of the people and Catholic light, right? The liturgy and all of that. So, and I loved it. But one of the things that I learned there and throughout my life was that there are things that can disqualify you from service to God. And that was always hard to understand, because it felt like there were things that could maybe disqualify you from being loved by God. And later in life, when I was in my mid-20s, I taught English at a university in Vietnam. And I was there for about 4 years, and I just loved it. It was a place of great growth in my faith. I was there with a Christian organization, and my purpose in being there was to share God's love by being an excellent teacher of English. And one of the things I appreciated about being there was that I got to meet God in a new way. I got to meet God without the clothing of the American flag. And I realized as I was living there that so many of the things that I had thought of as being God was actually some shape underneath an American flag. And to take that flag off, I was like, oh, wow, God is so much bigger and different than I thought. It was really extraordinary. When I came back to the U.S., I was working as a recruiter for the organization that had sent me there. And one of my jobs was to speak to churches and congregations. And often when I would call a church, and let's just say Texas, or Oklahoma, or anywhere really, they would often say, oh, we would love to hear more about what God is doing in Asia, but we would love to hear that from your husband. And I was like, I don't have one. And also, this is my job, guys. So it was hard, because it was one of those ways where you were disqualified from sharing what was happening. It feels like a way in which our church has cut itself off at the knees by silencing half the people who live with us. So it was hard. And so I kind of stopped going to church. And around that same time, I started dating Gordon, who is now my husband. I didn't know if that was going to happen at that time, just so you're aware. he knew apparently. But I was living in Seattle, and he was living here. And I was a little bit scared about the idea of love, so we dated long distance for a year, and then I moved to Oakland, because, I could be in California, but not in Napa. So then we dated that distance for a year. And during that time, I started coming to this church. I would drive up here from Oakland, I would sit in the back, and I would be a church ninja. And I would come in late and watch what was going on, and then I would sneak out before anyone could say hello to me, because, oh my gosh. So I was in and out for, 2 years, the church ninja. But I needed to observe you and see if you were really serious about what you said you believed about God. And I was really amazed by the love that I found here. When I moved to Napa, Gordon and I moved in together. It was the right choice for us. But we weren't married. And there were people in my family and loved ones in my life who wrote me long letters about how terrible it was and how, can you even believe in God and live this way? And again, I felt disqualified from God's love. And I felt rejected by people who were very close to me. I called a loved one to tell them about this exciting news that I was moving in with Gordon, and they hung up on me and we did not speak for several weeks. And it took years to rebuild that relationship. It was hard. And that was about the time when I started to want to contribute to CrossWalk with my gifts, and I started to want to, participate in the music and the greeting, and I just thought, but I'm living in sin. So I can't do that. And I remember going to someone and talking to them about, I'd really like to contribute, but I'm pretty sure I'm disqualified. And the love that I received and the what are you even talking about reaction that I received was so great for me. It was such an unlearning of these things, these lessons I had learned through life of the ways in which you can be disqualified from service to God and even love God's love. So thank you for being a community that loves without disqualification.